Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Olivia. How are you all doing? In today, I'm gonna use this Faber-Castell Polychroma pencil and we are gonna continue to working on a color salon for the World of Flower by Johanna Basford. So if you remember the last video, we did working on the leaves and I share with you a few leaves combination using the polychroma for this page, and I'm really happy that a lot of you guys find it helpful, and so today we are gonna continue to working on the flowers and finish off the page. So without further ado, let's get started. And so the first flower I want to do is this bell flower, and I want to make them sort of like a bluish purple. So I start off with this color is a mauve. It is a purple but a little bit of bluish purple. So I going in with a light brushes, not too much brushes at the start, and as you can see I left a little bit of white ring around the edges of the flower, so it make it nice and give it a little bit of transparent look, if it makes sense. And so as you can see, as I'm fading it out, I go quite light a little bit more than when you apply the brushes at the beginning. And then I going in with the sky blue and just blend that in with the purple. So all the colors combination will be listed in the description box like the last time we did with the leaves, and you can find all the colors there and follow the instruction when I do in the colors along. And then afterward you going in with the magenta colors. So the magenta is sort of like a purplish pink, and then you're just adding in just right at the bottom of this flower just for extra shadow. And I don't quite blend it out down quite far, just a little bit, and then you can go in with your purple and your blue just to blend out the colors a little bit more, make the transitions a little bit nicer. And the area that you left it white at the beginning, you can go in with the ivory colors. So if you remember, ivory is a really useful pencil and I always recommend you pick up this pencil, and you're just adding in where the highlights that you left. So a little bit of highlight that you leave in the flower will make it look a lot nicer. So now I just gonna continue to repeat the process for the rest of the flower. And now for the stem, I'm just gonna go in with you can use either May green or you can use a earth green yellowish color. So any light sort of yellow base green color can do. And as you can see, I just go like the top half of the stem and leave the other half for another darker color, which is the olive green yellowish, and you just sort of like blend it in, adding in a little bit of shadow for, you know, the, I don't know where it's connect the flower and the stem. I should really learn these flowers part, what it call, because I always kind of like don't know what they call, and just adding in at the end of the stem, because you know, usually it's a little bit darker, and you just repeat for the same for these flower down here because I think they look exactly the same. Now we are done with the small flower. Let's do a big flower. So I want this one is sort of like an orangey, pinkish colors, and I don't usually do orange flowers enough, so I really want to give you a combination for the orange. So I start off with a nice orange, light orange, which is a cadmium orange, and as you can see I just go in quite light brushes again, more like a medium light brushes, and I just adding in for the top bit of the petal. And then after that I'm going in with a light pink. This one is a light magenta, and I just really lightly adding in this color. So I don't want it to be too pink, I want it to be more on an orange side. So I just want to adding in a little hint of pink, because I think I saw some sort of flower with this color before for my flower book, the real flowers, but I don't exactly remember what is that flower called. It doesn't even look the same as this one, it's just the colors I thought is quite nice. And then after that you going in with the terracotta, and as you can see this is a really nice and dark orange. It's almost like an earthy orange, and I didn't really actually colors in. No, what does that mean? I actually color it in, but I just adding in some stroke and leave some area for the cadmium orange that we adding in the beginning, peeking through, because I think that is a really nice look. Is adding in a little bit of texture and vein look for this flower. And then after that I'm going in lightly with a dark brown, which is a burnt umber. Any dark brown will do, and I just adding in mostly where I adding in the terracotta colors, and don't use too much of these colors. And then the area that is close to the middle of the flower I'm going in with a mild green, and just adding slightly in a little bit of green colors for that one, so it's give it a little bit of contrasting. And now that you are done with all the flower petals, I also adding in a little bit of burnt umber at the end, just around the edges of where the middle of the flower is, and I don't actually blend it out too much, that is actually cover the green just a little bit to adding more depth. And of course you going back with the mild green just to blend out that brown a little bit, so the transition's a little bit smoother and more natural looking. So the area that you can see, I left it white. Now you're going back in with the ivory again, but if you like the white look, then just going in with a white pencil. Now for the actual middle of the flowers, you're gonna adding in an ivory base color and going in with the brown ochre and adding in a little bit of this color, but as you can see, I just adding in one side of the flower, and then you're going in with the burnt umber again. Oops, I just dropped the pencil because I tried to look at the name, and as you can see, I just like sort of go on one side where you're adding in the brown ochre before, but you left a little bit of the ring around it, so it look more nicer. I really like this technique for when you color in the middle of the flowers. And yeah, that is it for this one. You can also adding in a little bit of yellow for these little things sticking out. I don't think it's necessary, but if you want to, you can going in with the yellow, which is I use the light yellow. And you like yellow would too. I think I use a light chrome yellow, and then I going back in with a magenta, and I just adding in just one side a little bit with the blend it out with the yellow pencil, and I think that give it a little bit more depth look. I don't think this step is necessary. You can just go back in with the magenta without the yellow, but if you want to do exactly the same what I do, that's what I did. And I just adding in a little bit of the burnt umber for this stem around it, because it's sort of faded when you going in with the ivory earlier. And for the leaves around it, you're going in with a mild green first. So I think I left this one. I should have done this one from the last episode when we did all the leaves, but I missed it. So here we are coloring them. So I tried to pick out the similar colors at the leaves of the flower. So after that, you're going in with the olive green yellowish again, and just adding in where the base color is. So just at the bottom of this stem. And for any green stem or leaves that we're gonna do extra in this video, I'm gonna do very similar combinations, so we don't have a lot of combinations of green in this one, mostly concentrate in the flowers. And I want to first make it standing out from the leaves a little bit. I did adding in a little bit of the cadmium yellow for just the tip of the flower. And now for this flower right here, I thinking about doing is pink flower, so we're gonna going in with the alizarin crimson. I think that's what I call alizarin crimsons. So it's more on a reddish pinkish side. So if you watch my, I think I call basic technique to 5 ways to color flower petal, you did notice that I use the same technique for this one. I will link the video down below somewhere. And as you can see, I just color around the ring, but I left a little bit of wiring around that area as well. And then you're going in with the light magenta just blend the colors out a little bit, but as you can see I still left a tiny bit of white in the middle, so we can adding in the ivory colors. So this give it a very interesting look. For the petal, it's more sterilized colors. We sort of make it a little bit look more excited to looking at. And then for just the outline of this flower, I want to going in with a darker pink, so the wiring that we left around the petal can be more visible. So as you can see, I just sort of colored it in, but left a little bit of white color on the tip of each section. And then after that, I adding in the light magenta and just color in the area that you left white earlier. So the really important thing when you color flowers is try not to bring in too many different colors. You try to stick to a theme. If you want it to be pink, then stick to the pink colors and try to reuse of the color that you have been using for different areas, so it make the whole flowers come together and not just look like a few different flowers that's stacked on top of each other, if that makes sense. And that is it with this petal. We're just gonna repeat this process for all the petals. So now we are done with all the petal, and I really love how this turning out so far. But for the middle of the flowers, I want to make it rather simple, so I just gonna put in a nice base color using the light chrome yellow for all the petal, just around the edges. The around edges petal, because it's have double layers. So the reason why I'm doing that is because we do quite an interesting look for the surrounding petals, the big petals already. So I want the middle is looking so simple, so it doesn't overwhelming the entire flower. And then I going to use the cadmium orange. Any orange would do. These all fancy name that I think sometimes make people overwhelmed, but actually it's just a yellow and a dark orange. So think that way, so it's not too overwhelming for you when you pick colors. And you're just adding in the light in the middle of each petals. And now for the petal on top, for the middle one, you just going entirely with the dark chrome yellow, and then I adding in a little bit of bistro colors, which is a brown, and then just adding in a little bit in the center, so it is give it a little bit of depth. But because I don't want it too dark, that's why I'm picking a brown. You can also use a black or like a darker brown, which I'm gonna using now, which is a burnt umber. And as you can see, I sort of using the same colors for throughout the entire flowers. I adding in the same colors in some bit of from these flowers for another flowers. And the reason why is make the whole flower, the whole page come together and it doesn't look too busy. And now for these flowers over here, I want to make it purple again. And as you can see, I'm using the mauve colors again, so it's exactly the same color we used for the first flowers. And I just adding in using the similar shape. I follow the shape of the petal and leaving a little bit of white ring around it. And if you haven't picking up on the color scheme yet, I want the flowers, most of the flowers will be orange, pink and purple, because all these colors we haven't used in the background nor the leaves, because we have a lot of green going on. We have a lot of kind of dark grayish color in the background. And the background, the way I do it is look quite busy with all the colorful bokeh. So you sort of want the flowers have is a scheme, so it doesn't look too clash, the color won't clash together. And now I adding in a little bit of the light magenta, just blend out that purple colors. And very simple, that is pretty much the color for this flower. You can use any colors you want. You can also make it red if you want. But yeah, that is it. And then you're going in, I'm gonna going in with a cream colors. So this one is called cream, which is just a light, really light yellow. And you're adding in the area where you left it white. So you can see we have a little bit of white ring around the edges of each petal. We just want to add some light colors. And now for the middle, I'm gonna use a little bit of quite a dark green, the permanent green, but it's more on a brighter side than the green olive yellowish earlier we used. And then adding in a little bit of cadmium yellow, and then adding a tiny bit with the burnt umber just around the edges, make it nice and dark again. So that's a technique that I use a lot throughout when we coloring flowers. So now we are going to color these simple looking flower here because they are quite simple. So I want to color in just simple, using simple techniques such as the monochrome, and I want to make it pink. So I adding in a fuchsia color first, just for the bottom of the flowers, the flower petal, and sort of fading it out. And if you don't remember what monochrome is, please watch the video of how I pick color for my coloring page. That's where I explain some of the color theory term. And then I'm going to use the dark flesh colors and blend that pink out, and then at the end I adding in a little bit of the cadmium red just right in the centers, tiny bit only. I don't use a lot, and then you can just blend it out with the previous color you use. So you are probably wondering why I'm using a skin tone color such as a dark flesh, because the name screaming skin tone. But don't think too much about the name. These are quite like a not scientific but like more professional name for them, but you should pay attention to your swatches, the color swatches that you have in your book, and pick out the color using that, and don't think too much about the name. So it's gonna create a limit for you when you're picking color, because you think, oh, these are skin tone, I shouldn't use it in flower. But no, you can use them in flower because they pink tone, and it gives a little bit of interesting. And then afterward, I adding in a little bit of burnt umber again, just tiny bit in the middle, make the flower have more dimensions and a little bit shadow, make a whole difference. And you are most of the flower I'm gonna use these combinations, but I'm gonna show you a little bit of a different combinations after we're adding in the fuchsias. So as you can see, now I'm using the magenta for the middle of the colors instead of the dark, the middle cadmium red, because when you look at a flower bouquet, I think that's what it's called, Jesus, you can the same flowers, the same breed of flower can have different tone of colors, and the way that I'm doing this, it doesn't make it too different, but a little bit different from each other. So it's a little bit more interesting, and not exactly that you have to repeat the same color combination. You just change just one color from the color combination, and you can have something like not completely different, but it quite harmonized together. So now again for the stem, I'm gonna using a little bit of the cadmium yellow lemon, just adding again just at the top bit of the stem. Now for this stem, I know that you are wanting to color the same as I do, but don't think too much about these colors. For the stem, you can pick any green from your coloring, from your color pencil. It's just gonna be similar because the stem is very small. It just not gonna make a whole difference. And I'm using the bistro color, which is like a light brown, to adding in the bottom of this stem. And for this, I think there's sort of like a water droplet, so I'm using a little bit of sky blue, just adding in, and leave a little bit of I can't talk today, white ring around, so make it look translucent. And after that, I'm using the cobalt turquoise and just blend it in, blend it in, so make it a little bit more on the blue side and not too much purple side, because the sky blue can be a little bit more purple just looking at it compared to other colors in your blue collections. And now let's do an orange flower. So as you can see, I distribute the pink, the purple, and the orange sort of like evenly throughout the entire picture when we're coloring in these flowers. And I'm using here is a dark cadmium orange. So a dark cadmium orange is more like a true orange, and I just adding in the tip of the petal flower. So we have been using a dark color in the middle, from the bottom of these flower petals. So this one we change up the technique a little bit, so make it a little bit different from other flowers next to it. And I'm using a light orange, in this case is a dark chrome yellow, and adding in a little bit, blend out that orange, and then using the ivory to adding in where the largest area, which is very close to the centers. And then I'm using the dark cadmium red, just a little bit on the tip of the flower, so make it a little bit more red, so it looks different than the orange flower, the big orange flower we did at the beginning, and make it a little bit more orangey red. So you're gonna do the same for all the petal nails. So now we are done with all the flower petal. I'm going to do the center of the flower nails, and the video cut off, but I actually just put a base colors of the earth green yellowish down, and as you can see I leave a little bit of white ring around it, and using the cadmium yellow lemon to adding in, so the two colors is a little bit different. The outer is a little bit brighter and lighter color, and then I'm gonna use the permanent green again and do the same technique as I has been showing you throughout some of the flower, where we leave the light color outside the ring and then just adding in the dark color on one side. It give it like a diamond, not a diamond but like a gems looking gem, the gem looking, and I think it looked quite nice and bright. I really like that look. And you can also use a little bit of brown, which in this case I use a little bit of pastry colors, just adding in a little bit so it's look a bit nicer, because sometimes the center of the flower have a little bit of brown in it and it's not necessary it's all green. And now for the just these shape in the middle, the vein in the middle of flower, I using the dark cadmium red and blend it out from the centers out. So we're gonna use a dark color concentrate in the center of the flower, and then use a light flash adding in and fading it out. So we do the opposite way with the petal flower, so all this color kind of stand out a little bit better. And for the folding bit, you can use a dark chrome yellow, which is a light orange that we have been using for the petal, and then adding in a little bit of middle cadmium red, just for a little bit of tiny bit at the bottom where the fold is. And the ring, the white ring that around the flower, we're just going to use ivory. So I'm gonna use ivory for any area that is gonna be white, more lighter than other colors. I don't really like to leave it white. So yeah, and that is it with this flower. So now for this little flower right here, as you can see, it is like identical with the middle of the flower above, the pink flower, where we do like an orange and pink flowers, and inside is a yellow. So I want to make it quite simple, and I adding in a little bit of the ivory colors just then, and then going in with a mild green for the centers. And as you can tell, when you color a bundle of flower, a lot of flower, it's not necessary that you have to make each flower stand out or like really colorful colors. You can make it sort of simple, so the main flowers, the more complicated looking flower, can stand out more, and it's not make like every element on your picture fighting with each other to make an impressions. And I adding in earlier is a burnt umber, just a little bit of dark brown around the ring. And then for the outside, I using the light chrome yellow, just color the base colors again. And then I using is nice and light orange, which is a dark chrome yellows, and adding in for the stripe in the middle, just like how we did similar to the other flower, the pink flower. And that is it for this one. And now for these flowers right here, last time when I colored this, I didn't really notice how much they look like succulents. So I want to make it sort of like a green color, so I using a nice cadmium yellow lemon, any like yellow lemon, yellow green that you have, you're adding in a little bit. And I'm using the permanent green olive, and then just adding in at the bottom of this these kind of petals, let's call them petal, but as you can see, I make it look a little bit round and follow the shape of the flower, and also leave a little bit of ring around it as well. So I using pretty much the same technique sometimes it's the same technique, sometimes it's a bit different, but most of the technique I use in here, you can see how I do step by step, go through them in the 5 ways of how I colors flowers video. And then after that, you can see the blending is not that nice because the two color just simply very different. So I'm using a little bit of my green, which is the middle colors of these colors, and just adding in for the transitions, make it look a little bit more smoother with the transitions colors. And you are doing the same for everything. So now for the actual flower looking in the middle, I'm going to turn them to a blue, true blue colors, not purple blue, because we have purple and pink for the surrounding flower. So I think a nice cobalt blue will be really nice. So the name I use is a cobalt blue, and we're just using a simple technique, just adding in the color in the middle of the flower and fading it outward. And then you going in with the light cobalt turquoise to adding in around them. Just blend out these colors because I think these colors is very nice and blue, so it's gonna bring out this flower a little bit more and make this area a little bit more colorful than just the same pink and purple. And then for the centers of the flower, I'm using a nice light yellow. It's a light chrome yellow, and then adding in a little bit of the brown ochre, and also a nice dark brown, which is a burnt umber again, and using the same technique that we have been using. And as you can see, notice it's a little bit dark around the middle, which I using the burnt umber just to adding in, make it a little bit more depth. And now for this flower right here, I want to make them blue too, but I want to make it a little bit different blue than earlier we do. So I'm using an ultramarine, and very simple, like how I explained with this pink flower earlier. We want to make it look a little bit different from each other, but not too much. So that's why I'm using a little bit of different blue, and again just adding a little bit of colors onto the petal. Nothing too complicated. This flower is very simple looking, so you can color them in a simple ways and not make too much about the fuss about making them too stand out. And think about them as background colors, and then I'm adding in a little bit of purple, the mauve colors. So we're using a little bit of purple, so it's make a whole bunch of these flowers sort of like belonging together with the entire pictures and not just standing out too much, where you just have like really bright blue you use for the bigger flower, and this smaller flower I want to make it look a little bit blending in with how the purple and blue you have for the bell flowers. Now for the middle, it's just exactly the same, but because it's too small, you don't have to use the yellow, just use a brown ochre and then a little bit of burnt umber. Yeah, there you go. When you look at it, it looks a bit different, but not too much. Now for this flower right here, if you remember, it looks sort of similar to the purple up here, but I want to make it red. I don't want to make it brown. I don't want to make it purple. So we use a little bit of a middle cadmium red. And then I use a light flash just to blend out that red. And then afterward, you using a little bit of the burnt umber just for the centers of the flowers again. You can also use black pencil if you don't have any dark brown. And then now for the centers, I'm gonna make just like a standard green. So I'm using a little bit of the cadmium yellow lemon, permanent green olive for the centers, and a little bit of burnt umber. Now for these little flower right here, like a star-shaped flowers, I want to make them so like a pinkish color. So we start off with an alizarin crimson. Oh my god, I can't say the name. Alizarin crimson. Okay, and the technique we use is very similar to one of the pink flower that we do earlier, where we leave a little bit of wiring around, and then I adding in a little bit of light flash, and then I put in a little bit of the magenta, which is really nice and dark pinkish purple looking, for the tip of the petal flowers, and just a little bit around on the edges, make it look a bit nicer. So we're gonna do the same for all of the petal now. And now after you're done with all the flowers petal, for the centers of the flowers again, I'm gonna use a nice cadmium yellow lemon for the base, and then we using the olive green yellowish, adding in a little bit of olive green yellowish and a little bit of the cadmium yellow, just tiny bit, just like you blushing it, just a little bit around the centers of the petals, so you don't actually colors it in, so use really light brushes. Now for this flower, it look exactly the same, but I want to make it more on the purple pink side, so I'm gonna use a little bit of the purple violet instead of the alizarin crimson, and you're gonna adding in a little bit of the light purple pink. So the name is Tell Everything is purple, but it have a little bit of pink colors in it. And then after that, you can blend it out, and then after the pink, we're using the light flash to adding in the lightest area, because we did use these colors on the pink flowers, and I think that's make them look more belong together. Now moving on to these flower right here, again they look very simple, so we're gonna make them quite simple again with a pink flowers. And so I'm using a mauve color first, and as you can see I use this technique a lot, but I think it just gives the flower a really nice look where you leave a little bit of white edges. And after that you adding in the sky blue for this petal, blending the purples out. Just at the beginning, if you remember the bell flower that we did use the same combinations, but here we just gonna use that simple combinations and not actually adding in any extra color, so just 2 colors. And now for the centers of the flowers again, I'm gonna adding in a little bit of cream colors for the base, and using the bistre colors, just adding in a little bit of the brown in here, but again leaving a little bit of the ring outside. And you're just gonna add this color in like just halfway, and using a little bit of the burnt umber, make it a little bit darker, adding a little bit more depth, and also using this color to adding in around all the bottom of these petals, so make it look more 3D. So we're gonna do the same for these, but for this flower again I'm gonna use adding in a different combination. So again we're using the mauve for the bottom, but instead of the sky blue we're gonna adding in a light magenta, so it's have a little bit of pink, more pink. And as you can see they look very different, they look rather different but still similar because we did use the same base color. Now after I colors in all the flower, as you can see, I colored some flowers is the pink and the purple, and some flower is a pink and the blue, so it's nice and evened out the entire section here. And then for the stem, I just using a little bit of my green and a little bit of the permanent green olive for the bottom half of the stem. So very simple, nothing too complicated. So now for our biggest flowers of this flower pot, I want to make it red. So let's start off with a nice base of a deep scarlet red. And the reason why I want to make it red is, as you can see, any of the flowers around it, I didn't really make any of the flower red beside from these little red flowers on, you know, where the butterfly is, because I want the concentration to be on this flower right here. And after you using the deep scarlet red, you're going to adding in a little bit of a darker red. So here I'm using the middle cadmium red, which is a little bit darker. I think the deep scarlet red, despite the name, is more like a pinkish red, like a light tone red, not actually really red. So you want to make it a little bit more red, so adding in that middle cadmium red in, and then blend out with a medium flesh colors. And as you can see, I left a little bit of the white at the top bit again. And the reason why I did that is we want to adding in the highlights for that later, so it look a bit nicer. And you can see now I just using the deep scarlet red again, just to, you know, blend out all the colors. So it's just the normal process. You adding in colors, you blend it out with the previous color, so make the transitions look nice and even and very smooth. And now to make it even darker for the shadow, to adding more depth for the petal, I'm using a little bit of the burnt umber. So you can use pale green or pale gray or any gray that you have. I don't recommend you use black because black can make it look a bit muddy. Now for the top bit where you're leaving the white, I adding in a little bit of cream color, so not the ivory but cream, because I want it to look a little bit yellowish, not actually just white. So now you're gonna continue to do the same thing for all the petal. Oh, and now just one thing that I realized, I keep mention that is dark flesh throughout the entire video, but it actually the medium red, not dark flesh. I didn't really notice the name on the pencil that I was showing, so I'm sorry for that. But dark flesh or medium flesh is pretty much similar. Now as you can see, when we are done with all the petal, is look really nice together, and we go into adding in the centers of the flower. Now we're adding in a little bit of the cadmium yellow lemon for the base color, and a little bit of my green, and again I leave a little bit of the edges, and then I adding in the permanent green olive. So you have a light green, a medium green, and the darkest green. Just think like that and not think too much about the colors name. It's gonna make you go a bit insane with all the different names, but actually it's very simple technique. You're just adding in the light green, medium green, and dark green. That's it. And now as you can see, I'm going in a little bit with a gray now. So the Payne's gray is my favorite gray to adding in shadow. So I'm adding in around the centers of these flowers to bring out more shadows, and a little bit where I think is need to be a little bit darker. So for example, for this flower, I blushing this gray in a little bit where the leaves is like kind of cover the flowers, and you know, just a little bit through entire pictures. Now we are done with all the flowers. It look really nice, and I'm really happy with the color scheme. It doesn't look too busy. Of course it look a bit busy, but I think it's because of the butterflies. I adding too many butterflies, but actually the flower is not the color is not clashing with the background at all. And now I just using the white gel pen to adding in some, you know, highlights and add a little bit of magical touch for the flowers, so make it look nice. I'm using the Unisignal broad gel pen. You can also use Sakura gel pens. I don't have any Sakura gel pens, so I can't tell if it's good or not. I heard that it's not as opaque as this one, but if it's any white gel pen will do. And just adding in a little dot here and there for the petal, for the highlights, and yeah, that's it. Now let's do the last sections of the coloring page. We are going to do the wooden pot, wooden bucket. I don't really know what it's called, but I'm gonna do is like an orangey wood. So let's imagine where the light coming from. So for me, I think the light coming from all sides. So we're gonna use the front angle is the largest area, and these any edges that's sticking out, I'm gonna use the ivory color to put down a base color first, so we know those areas we're gonna keep it nice and bright and we don't adding too much colors. And after that, I'm going to use this one is a brown ochre, and you're just adding in a little bit of this color. So we're gonna do a little bit of layering in this case, because I think when you're layering for the wood, it look a lot more complex and it look a little bit more organic, like natural looking, than you just adding in very automatically like all this, you know, up to this section is gonna be dark color, up to this section gonna be middle color. So we're gonna sort of like blending it out a little bit and make it a lot nicer. But pay attention to where the front center where I adding in the colors now. So this area gonna be a lightest area, because that's the light as the light hitting at the back. So these edges on the side will be the darkest area, and the front will be the lightest one. And I just adding in a little bit of these colors, very nice brushes. You don't adding in brushes anything much at the moment. And then I going in with the burnt ochre. So it's a little bit more on the orangey side, adding in a little bit. So using this pencil, I'm using this now, it's just adding in the like mark where we're adding color. So it's not necessary that we are going to finish this with just, you know, how it look right now. We're adding in the base color first, if that makes sense. So concentrate with these middle colors is in the middle of the wood, and you don't have to do exactly the same length at every wood. You can see the for the top wood here, I bring this color out a little bit more, and for this wood underneath, I just adding in a little bit shorter. So now after that, you are going in with the terracotta colors, and this is just a darker versions of the burnt ochre that you are using earlier. And again, these colors are gonna concentrate mostly on the left side of the wood panel. And now I'm using this color, the burnt sienna, which is brown but a little bit more on the redder side. And I think the red with the orange brown blend out really nice together, and it bring the whole wood together, like the wood looking together. So that's why I add in these colors, and mostly again on the left side where it is mostly the shadow will be. And now I'm going back in with the burnt ochre, adding another layer. So we blend it out. We start to blending out all the color now. Just adding in a more opaque for the oranges, and then to make it easier for you guys to imagine where the depth, like how we're gonna make it a little bit more 3D looking. As you can see, this crack between each wood panel, we're gonna adding in a simple black, because the black is the best color to adding in where it's the darkest shadow, and therefore adding in the shadow at this moment after you adding in roughly where all the colors will be and where the light area will be. It will give you a roughly idea on how you going about the whole colorings this wood thing, because it's look a little bit complicated when you firstly look at it. You don't really know where to start, so that's why I'm adding in slowly each element for you, so you can imagine it a little bit better. And now after that, I going in with the burnt umber, and it is a really nice and dark brown that we has been using throughout the entire pictures. And I just gonna adding these colors quite medium full brushes, just mostly on the left side where it's gonna be a lot of dark shadow, and bring it out a little bit on the bottom edges as well. Now we are going to adding in the ivory colors for the lightest part of the wood panel, which is on the right side. And this is mostly like a base color, but you adding in a little bit so you sort of like know, like see how all the colors come together. And then after that, I going in with the brown ochre. So the brown ochre, I using it as a shadow for the lightest part, where at the beginning I tell you this edge is gonna be the light color. So we just adding in the brown ochre and blend it out with the ivory colors again. So we don't actually using two dark colors. Now I'm going to adding in a little bit of black also on the left side, but I didn't really press the black colors. So to be safe, you can use a little bit of the dark, the cool gray dark, or warm gray dark, the darkest warm gray that you can find, or the darkest cool gray that you can find. Any dark gray will do, so it will help you not to go overboard with the black. But I adding in mostly here the area that I'm adding in, so a lot of leaves around it, so we're gonna adding in the black in this area, so it give you a nicer look, and it doesn't make these leaves, it just like floating around, you know, in the areas, and actually like have a little bit of shadow. And then after that, I using the sandwich to blend, adding in a little bit of more colors, but really nice pressure, because I don't want to make this area too dark, because I want it to be a light color, but I want it to have a little bit more oranges looking, because the brown ochre that we're adding in a little bit earlier is a little bit more on the yellow side, brown, but I think is give the wood a little bit more interesting colors look than, you know, just adding in all the orange. So mostly it's gonna be look oranges, but it's have a little bit of red tint in it, it have a little bit of yellow tint in it, so it look a bit nicer. And I also adding in a little bit of green colors as well, so not too much, just a tiny bit. And then I'm going back with the black again. Now we are doing the wood grain for these wood panels. So because we're adding in a lot of layers for this wood, is sort of like make all the details disappear, so we're just gonna bring it back in with the black pencil, and it's quite simple. you're just adding in the black, and that would be okay. But I also later I gonna use a little bit of dark brown, just like you're adding in a little bit, so it's not just like you just straight line of the wood grains, and it gives you a little bit more variety of colors. Now as you can see, I'm adding in a little bit of the burnt umber now, and so it gives you like some of the crack of the wood grain is not too deep, and some of them is just a little bit more shallow, and some of them is a little bit deeper by using the black. So we're using the combinations of the black and the dark brown to create that sort of impressions when you look at the wood. With the same black pencil, after you doing the wood grain, I'm going to use this black, also adding in extra shadow for these little leaves that like go over the wood pot, the wooden pot. So it's give it a little bit more extra depth for it, and it's look a bit more 3D looking. So it's very simple, as you can see. And when I adding in the shadow using the black pencil, as you can see for these veins here, I don't actually like adding in the black like close to it, but give it a gap between, so because it will give you impression it's have a space, so it's not actually these leaves vines not actually stuck onto the wood, but it's have a little bit of space in the middle, so it's keep a little bit more 3D looking. And so you do the same for the other side of the wood, but just opposite, where you do the light area on the right and the dark area on the left. So I really hope you enjoyed these colors along with me. I hope you learned something new. Please share this video with your friends. If you like the video, thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more video. In the meantime, take care and happy coloring. Bye.